Amen.
O ever Immaculate Virgin, Mother of Mercy, Help of the sick, refuge of sinners, Comforter of the afflicted, you know my wants, my troubles, my sufferings. Look upon me with mercy. When you appeared in the grotto of Lourdes, you made it a privileged sanctuary where you dispense your favors, and where many sufferers have obtained the cure of their infirmities, both spiritual and corporal. I come, therefore, with unbounded confidence, to implore your maternal intercession. My loving Mother, obtain my request. I will try to imitate your virtues, so that I may one day share your company and bless you in eternity. The act. Moral act.
What?
The moral act.
I thought you said something before that.
The act.
Oh.
The moral act. Wow.
Dun, dun.
Give me the spots. Talk to me. Where do you know you're acting morally? What's the word? Go ahead. When do you know you're acting in a way that's moral? Meaning not artistic, but relationship building. Hint, it's written on the board.
Responsibility?
Yes, very good. An act of which you are responsible is a human act. And there's two forms of human actions. The first in Latin is called free,
Facere.
and the second in Latin is called
Agere.
nice. And agere can be translated as
To act.
to do or act, nice. And facere can be translated as
To
to make. Exactly, good job. Fac hoc, do this, do it, fac. Facere, as in it's a fact, it's something that happened. So those two ways of acting, this to do is what we call the to do was translated in Latin as mores. You'll see this every once in a while in reading, or if you pay attention, maybe 15 times a year someone will use this word. And they'll say mores. Okay, and what they should say is mores, but mores is still fine. And that comes from the French word, the English, so the Latin word mores became the French word, which is spelled like this. Meurs, les mœurs, and les mœurs, les French. The French use the word les mœurs all the time. So for them, they're going to say mœurs is like, they're going to use that 600 times in a year. We use it 15. But that became, in English, the idea of moral. So mores, mœurs, moral, all of that having to do with actions. But it's in French, it's got a more of a thing. But mores is the way of acting. Okay? So what it says, it doesn't have a specificity of agere in our language. Mores, you just think. Okay, but what I'm trying to show you is a little bit of the linguistic history here. That the idea is that I am responsible not just for doing things by what I've made, but I'm also responsible for making relationships. So when a young man comes to me and tells me that he wants to engage in a relationship and asks me for advice, I'm now giving him ethical advice. So the word ethics is a Greek word. It comes from the Greek. Mores comes from the Latin. But anyway, this ethical advice, ethics, is the realm of acting in terms of becoming yourself. So you doing studies at SJI is a facere. You're either good at studies or you're bad at them. You're good at statistics or you're bad at them. You get good notes or you don't. That's facere. You might be a poor student, but you're not in this in order to become a great statistician. That's not what's going to help you in life. There hopefully will be, in the future, students who are these future budding business leaders of the world. Great. So good to have you. But the reason you're here is because of ethics. The fact of challenging yourselves and stretching yourselves to be at prayer when you don't want to be at meals when you don't want to be at class when you don't want to be, to taking subjects that you think are worthless is actually the point. Because that's forming you to be someone who is not overcome by difficulty and not small in her little world, but is able to say, I've busted through the mold. An example of that, why would I go to the inner city to preach when that's not my mold? Because it's not my mold. That's why I go to the inner city to preach. So I went to the inner city and spent 3 or 4 in there. It was my first time really preaching in the inner city. And I really preached in the inner city. And I learned so much more. But I had to overcome all kinds of discomfort. All kinds of things that would have stopped me. If it would have been up to me, I would have never done it. But up to me, I wouldn't, But I allowed myself to say, it's not about the facere, it's about the agere. But what happens inside of my heart? How can I become a person who can relate to these people? And that growth, I'm so happy for. Is there a growth there? Absolutely. You become more or less perfectly yourself to the degree that you achieve your end. And most of the time, especially in our culture, our end goal is defined by facere. I'm going to put in a moral way. Because the facere end goal is get your degree. That's facere. You have to have a minimum of facere, study skills, time, discipline, ability to write notes, logic, memory, okay? And so if you can apply that well, congratulations, But that's really not what we're all about. The reason we're asking you to do that facere is not because we expect everyone to be businessmen. It's because we expect everyone to be fighters. And that the new evangelization requires souls to have fight. And fighting is by definition very uncomfortable. Which is why so few people do it. Boxing. I think if I could do it all over again, I'd do boxing. What an incredible sport. But what a terrible sport. I mean, feel the pain, feel the sting, be beaten, to have to constantly overcome. It takes a certain personality. Well, that realm of ethics is what I'm talking about. It's where I have to achieve a moral end goal. Now, what is a moral end goal? It's going to be, just real practically put, defined by relationships. So that's really not very philosophical, right? But I got one class, one opportunity. So I want you to leave here having it. Ethics is the philosophy of relationships. That's how you can think of it. Can I kill my mom when she's in a lot of pain and we don't have money? How do I make that the ethical determination? Well, what's a relationship? Who is it that you're in relationship with? That determines what you can and can't do. So when you want to remember what's ethics, remember it's the philosophy of relationships. How I form them. How far can I tease a student before I no longer tease them? It's an ethical sense based on the relationship that you have with them. I'll give you an example of this. We had a fella who's applying to try to do something for one of my ministries, and he's making bids to do work, and he's making bids in a way that's so over the top that he's actually rendered the opposite effect.
In other words, he's come across as a salesman. He's gone beyond that ethical boundary of recognizing the relationship, being keen, saying and assertive about what he wants in the relationship, but respecting that balance of the relationship, he hasn't. And it's made a negative effect, the contrary effect. So even though what he promises seems very appealing, we're almost like, we don't really want to work with him. It's kind of interesting, right? That's a sense of ethics. Your thought chair is amazing. You used all the right words, and they rhymed in your proposal, and but like I shared this person's proposal with another person. I said, "What do you think?" And the person said, "Stay away from this guy. His language, he's full of buzzwords." But like it sounded awesome. We'll deliver for you 100 times over what you'd ask for, blah blah blah. But they lacked an ethical intelligence. So it's neat because you know, the fundraise and do this and this. You have to do this and this and this. You have to tell them you want it. It's like you have to be smart about the relationship. This is where the President Jason will talk about emotional intelligence. It's this. Your ethical sense. Your EQ. Emotional intelligence. How do I read the room of my students? When have I lectured too long and need to ask a question? When if I ask a question, when I get an answer? Emotional intelligence. Ethical sense. Because of this, because it's a philosophy of relationships, you're going to be able to achieve good relationships through it. This is a very practical philosophy. There's speculative philosophy, and there's practical philosophy. Speculative philosophy is truth for truth's sake. Does God exist? Extremely speculative. What is the good of man? Then there's practical philosophy. Ethics is here. And this is truth for my sake. Because if I could nail how to live relationships, I'd be a happy person. Questions? Listen, feedback. Group. You want to act it out together? Okay. So let's go into this ethical act then. I keep going over it, and right now it doesn't seem like, you're like, this is so boring. But there will be the day where you'll be like, I am so glad. Because what we just did there is something that you don't do in the majority of university courses in philosophy, ever. Actually broaden your mind to another realm of action that's undefined and indeterminate. Yep. And yet be able to be intelligent. So when I'm intelligent about it, I say, okay, it really starts with my ability to make choices. So I want to talk about that today. We know how this spills backwards, right? Before I make the choice, I have to deliberate.
Counsel.
Thank you. That implies counsel. Before I deliberate, I have to have intention. Before I have intention, I have to have a
First love.
Yeah, that's the easiest one to remember. The intention, keyword is
Moral.
order. Good job. First love, fittingness. Your first love will determine whether or not you talk to the person. You just feel it. And you don't even feel it, you're not even aware of it. But you do it spontaneously. You walk into a room and you're just like, no, oh yeah. We don't know anybody at all. I was at the priest gathering, and just like, so awkward, right? So I have 300 priests all who know each other. I don't know anybody. And so I like, how do I find, there's a neat experience. It's like, how am I going to find who I'm, because it's awkward just to stand there, like literally standing there. You're standing there. How am I going to find where I fit in? And what's neat is that most of the time you find that this sense of fittingness, it's linked to a sense of safety. And it's linked to an innate sense of what's good for you. People sometimes have an incredible, we call it a cogitative sense. Cogitate,
cognition, knowledge. The cogitative sense is this really cool thing. Have you ever been with someone who's got a good sense of the cogitative? You would know this because they just suddenly know what they should do. Like a sense of a person with a good sense of a cogitative. Like an example would be, you're on a train and all of a sudden the person's like, this is not our stop. This is not our stop. You know? And you're like, no, it's our stop. No, it's not. And they don't know why they don't know it's not, but they just know it's not. Or the person says, don't trust that guy. And you just don't even know why, but they just know. When they sit down to eat, they actually know what they want. They go up, they just kind of like feel it. They can feel the relationship between a thing and themselves and feel if it's good or not. And it's beyond words. It's not that they're walking around feeling, using their cognitive. They just do it by instinct. They don't really get lost very often. Or if they get lost, they're never really in danger. They have a sense of poison. Cogitative. Almost like a horse has a keen sense of a cogitative. A horse just feels it. You know, they feel you. What is that? That's the cogitative. That's the sense of something's good or bad. You think babies have this too? There's something very primitive in us. Well, that's going to enable you to be ethical. The stronger that your sense is, like an instinct of, this is fitting for me, the easier it'll be to make good choices. It's neat, huh? It's like there's a lot of our ethical lives that's beyond like rationality. A lot of the reasons we succeed in relationships is not rationality. And it starts with this cognitive sense, the sense of safety. Look what this requires from me.
So what about
self-love.
people that just have no, I mean, there are people that really just have no sense of that whatsoever. Is that, I mean, something that you're just,
Even much harder.
that you like are just, because I mean, you get that feeling about things, and it's very much like, or about people and stuff. I mean, especially I think with people, and you can't explain it, but you know it. So if you had someone that has no ability for that at all, I mean, I don't feel like that's something you really learn.
No, you can't. I think it's really something that comes from birth, being held, your sense of your mother. Honestly, a lot of it's like, because it's really instinctive, it's this sense of safety and like, I want soft and warm. And I have a right to soft and warm. So when you get to the room, you're like, I should be soft and warm. If you're deprived of that, it's true, you're going to be screwed up. How do psychopaths happen? It's always in their childhood. Something weird happened. And so it's like they have this sense they don't know what's right or wrong. They blur the boundaries. It's fascinating to think about that. This is practical philosophy. And it goes down to this. When you teach a child that they should be eating, and that they should eat a lot, and they should sleep, and they should play, and you teach them the basics of like, it's okay to be safe, it's okay, they're going to have this innate sense, that's the basis of absolutely everything else. If this is screwed up in a child, in a person, it's really hard for them to do the rest. Now you have AIDS, you have this beautiful thing called law, it's called the commands things, you know. You've got authority, you've got the Bible. I mean, you have things that are sitting there pointing the way, but a lot of people, they just take refuge in these things because it's the only reason things are right. And it's because they don't have this ability to bond. You find it's like, I think like a lot of times, why do boys have such a hard time asking me out? Why do boys not propose to me? What's the matter with the men? It's way down there. Like, do you know that it's okay to love yourself? Do you feel like I deserve to be happy? Right? I have that really ingrained in myself, well then I can operate. And when I operate, then I'm like, there are many things that are good, and I can actually prioritize them. And intention is when you're like, yep, there are many fine flowers in the field. I shall pick this one and not that one. Well, how did you make that choice? You made it because somewhere along the line, inside of you, there was this unspoken thing of, I'm picking a flower. The intention becomes like the driver. And it's based upon this primal thing, this first love. I deserve to be happy. Go ahead.
One of the things that or that I read about is like people with like high functioning autism, like where they can't like read like those social clues, like they really have no concept of like, I guess all of that makes sense. Like they wouldn't have that feeling of like what another person is, or kind of like these signals that tell you to step back, or which is why they have to like almost learn these methods, or when they have like relationships that are successful, the other, their spouse has to know like they're never going to be able to like sense this, or.
But they're just, you're right.
So I was thinking like they do it, but they do it with like help from other people in a sense. It's still not natural.
And that's the law, the Bible, the order, the teacher, the authority. And that's a real handicap. When you meet someone who's really got their act together, they all love themselves. Nobody walks around not loving themselves. They all have this thing, like, no, I deserve to sleep. And you know what? We're going to celebrate. And I love the leather couches, so I get leather. It's really weird, because a lot of times religion comes in and like stifles this, and that's why you get people that are really confused, and they are making bad decisions again. Well, I shouldn't love myself. This is not always rational. People never think of it. It's just this deep down sense of self-esteem that says, I'm able to say, ooh, that's good or that's bad. Your first love is like, do I want or not want? Do I stay or do I go? It's that basic. Your intention is when you say, of all the different ways, I'm ready to act. So a guy without an intention, a person with an intention, okay, now they have to orient that intention. So they deliberate. They enter into a phase where they ask counsel. Now, what's the role of counsel?
Get someone else's opinion that might have like a clearer view on it than you have. Well,
A clearer view on it, which means what? What is he evaluating?
Sometimes, evaluating you and whatever the situation is.
Nice.
They could have more wisdom, more experiences.
They're also helping you remove you from like maybe an emotional attachment or an irrational attachment to whatever it could be.
Yeah. You're right. So what the counsel's job is you need to find somebody who knows the end and someone who knows you. I like to think of counsel as a hammer. You could have a super heavy hammer. If you just dropped it once, it would put the nail right through the board. But if you can't lift it, it's really good at nailing nails, but doesn't fit you. And you could have a hammer that's so easy to lift, but it doesn't do anything against the nails. An advice giver is the same way. Find someone you're like, no, you actually know what you're talking about. At the same time, I fit with you. I like you. I like talking to you. I want to open up to you. I want you to see me. I feel comfortable with you. My brother, who's a licensed counselor from the state of Ohio, says that 70% of whether a person reaches their end through the counselor depends on the relationship they have with you. So if you want to find a counselor, 70% of your determination should be, do I like this person? Do I want to talk to them? Do I feel like I can open up to them? Because when you can't, then they're not good if he's super great. He can't, he scares you or talks too fast. There's no one to ask the right questions. He gets impatient. He never has time. He's not here. Obstacles. It doesn't mean anything that's wrong with him. It just means, well, between you and him, there's a misfit. And on the other hand,
you could be a great fit with that person, but they're clueless. This would be like your little brother. Yeah, it's great, your little brother, I talk to him all the time. He's not gonna give me really good advice because he didn't have a clue. Because what they have to do is they have to look and help you to see which means are the most appropriate to get you to your end. So in the example here of a person who's, I'm a healthy girl, I love myself, and I've decided it's time for me to move out of the house. Well, where do I go and how do I do that? I could go to Vegas and be a shell changer at the casino. I could go and work on a cruise ship in Alaska. I could go to SJI. I could do all kinds of different things. So you sit and you enter the phase where you ask somebody and they help say, you know what, that's not a good means for you. It's a means, it'll get there, but the one for you is this one. And they help you to make that determination because you're the one that's in charge of your life. So this remains on the outside because it's not you. It's on the outside. And a good counselor, it's someone that helps you to make the decision that is best for you. Where it fails when you think that they're supposed to make the decision for you. A lot of people are like that, just tell me what to do kind of thing. I'll do it. There's a lot of people who do it to God. God just knows what to do and I'll do it. But now he doesn't tell me. It's because he doesn't want to. Where are you in this? You know? Or they don't love themselves or they're all screwed up so they don't want to do that. But at the same time when you're like, okay, where else does it fail? It fails when the person isn't the driver or when the person doesn't take the counsel. So at the same time, you could ask that counselor for help, but if you're not really ready to listen, well, that's also kind of like a little bit foolhardy. Because the counselor knows the end. He's been there. He's been through it. If you take this means, you will fail and it will really hurt. You need to really listen to that. It's kind of cool. So the place of counsel comes in because I pause about how to realize my intention. The counsel is concerning how, not if, but how. There are many ways to skin a cat. How is the best way to do it? Understand? So, give me an example in your lives where you have given counsel. And was it a good experience? Great. Regina.
I feel like I do it a lot with with my siblings, and it's worked out pretty good so far.
Has it been hard?
In some scenarios, yeah, because I mean sometimes, yeah, it's like situations that I don't know about. So like, it's either, you know, counseling them on how they should be approaching it, but also like doing work on my part to like figure out what would be helpful for them.
Have you ever had counsel fail? Bad advice been given you?
I mean, I've had people tell me things like, oh, you should do this, and then I just don't do it because I know it's bad counsel. I guess I've never like just taken someone's counsel typically without like discerning if that would be good counsel or not. I think most of the time when it's bad counsel, it's kind of counsel you didn't even seek. Someone that just wants to tell you what you should do. And that's usually where bad counsel comes from. But I mean, even with counsel, there's discernment there. Everybody has a different opinion, and you still have to like look at it, approach it.
So how do you choose the right way? You have deliberative phase, you have counsel, you look at your options, you know which one to choose.
A lot of it depends on the relationship you have with the person giving you advice and your trust with, discerning all of your options, I guess.
There's a magic 8-ball on the shelf at Walmart.
For free, go and ask
Yeah,
the magic
just go
people.
to Walmart and
Walmart.
shake
You don't
the
even have to
magic
buy it.
8-ball. Yeah.
I knew the guy that made the Magic 8-Ball app.
There's an app.
Mhm.
That's
Of
ridiculous.
course there is.
You got your phone and everything, you can ask Magic 8-Ball.
Well, but it does have to do with relationship though, because like, do you trust that person? Are they someone who has been successful in their life? Like,
Not even
not
in their, I guess in their life, but also like, do you trust that they're giving you advice for you or for themselves?
What does it mean to make the choice? How do you know when you've made one?
you started acting on it.
Do you think you make the choice before you act or after you act?
Before you act.
Okay, so how do you make the choice? How do you know when you made one?
There's usually some kind of commitment in some way. Like, I mean.
So take an example in a relationship. How do you know, how do you know what to wear? You gotta make a choice, there's only one thing you can wear and you got one shot, one opportunity. How do you make that choice? You're in front of your closet and you're like, Some might not choose a lot about it, but let's suppose you needed to make it the right thing. It was his family's, he's taking you to meet his family at their wedding reception of his sister, and you're his date. First time you meet the family.
I mean, you're going to want to impress, so you're going to want to wear one of the nicer things you own.
Something that's comfortable, flattering.
Part of that comes from just like the law norm, like these are what you wear to like nice scenarios, these are, but then on
Would it be
top
the
of
time
that,
to go a little bit, with a little
Not
bit of
risky.
pizzazz?
No. You stay on the safe side because you don't want to stand out too much.
But do you want to stand out at all?
You do.
So maybe like a
So
hat,
you look
like a
put
sun hat?
together.
to wedding
Yeah, sun hat.
reception? No.
Yeah. Why not?
You choose a safe option, one that you know is not going to create
And
any
you're
kind
not
of
in
like
the sun.
scandal or like draw too much attention. Like if you're wearing a sun hat, you're gonna like
Especially if it's in an
a
indoor
sun
wedding
hat too.
reception.
Sun hat too, yeah. A normal wedding. It's just before, if you're getting to know people, you want, because you would draw attention to like your appearance, where you want people to get to know who you are before like judging you for like.
You want them to know like you're put together
Yeah.
and that you know you take you made an effort for
You guys,
them.
a good example, right? So you got, but look at how much reflection is going into that choice.
Yeah.
How do you know when you got the right one? When you're like, okay, how do you get to that point where you're like, this one? What happens inside?
Just
look in the mirror and you're like, that one's good.
Good. There's an evaluation of goodness. So a choice is made with these. So when you're looking at all the means and you choose this one in the respect of it's good. Now what makes it good? Why is it good? Why use that word?
Why would you want something that's bad? You're attracted to goodness.
You're right, but I'm trying to think what's behind that goodness. It's
You
good in
like
what
it,
sense?
it's comfortable, you know that it will impress the people that see it.
You like it, and here's the goal. It's an adequate means between the two. It's gonna bring me to the end. Just really cool just to kind of see that. So this can help you when you need to make a choice about something. You need to evaluate. An example would be, do we have another child? Is that our means? Well, how are you doing? No, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is life. God makes us have babies. Well, hang on. That's true. You meet a lot of Catholics who adopt that point of view. NFP equals not for providence. That's what they'll say. That's, of course, not the position that we teach you, but that's what they'll say. And they'll say it doesn't matter about you. What matters is that you make the kids. More kids to marry you. Well, that like works until about number 5. And then things start getting a little bit crazy. How do you know when to say, no, that means is that child's actually going to hurt us? Your husband wants to adopt. How do you know? Your husband wants to move. What about the kids, their friends? You start going through everything, and what you're evaluating is it good? Will it bring us to our end well? And there's oftentimes a choice between two goods. It'd be really good to move because you'll be happy at your work. And it'd be really good to stay because our kids have their best friend live right across the street. I've known married couples that had that situation happen. And they're like, we really are too small in the apartment. We just can't move because our best friends are with us. They're right downstairs, in the apartment complex. When will we ever be this close to each other again? Well, you're like, it's the choices between good and evil are not the question. It's the choice between good and good. And that's where you have to step in and be like, well, for where you are right now, you almost like put more here. For where you are right now, this is a better step. Let's do it for a year and reevaluate. So there's this, right?
So, in that scenario, are you really thinking of the end goal then? If you're saying, well, this is where we are right now, let's just see what happens?
Well,
Or shouldn't it?
at that, because it kind of depends, like, on where that person's at. Where's your spouse? He's depressed in his current job. That's different from he's happy in his current job. He's depressed in his current job. And he always thought that you had your MBA from SGI. He just has a bachelor's degree in chemistry from some school. And so he's always thought you were better. And so he's not even leaving the family. And when he came home from this job opportunity, his eyes were on fire for the first time. And he started speaking fast. And he said he really, really wanted to do this. And wouldn't you let him? That changed the dynamic.
You should have gone to SGI. I mean, that would have solved the whole
Solved the
problem.
whole problem. And then, but then Susie's going to have to leave her little friend, but she's only 6. But I remember when I was 6, I lost my friend and forgot. You have to weigh all of these things out. The thing you can remember in the moral, in the ethical choices, is that it's almost always a choice between goods. And a choice between goods is going to be made with reference to your love and your desire. The thing that kills good Catholics is that they don't think that they should follow their desires. And I say it kills you because it's almost like all things are lovable, and I love this one the most. To be able
to say that allows you to be an ethical person. If you don't say that, you'll never make an ethical choice. Marry her, Rick. I mean, sure. What's the matter, Rick? I don't know if I want to be married. You dated her for 5 years. You don't know if you want to be married? Well, it's not her. It's just not her soul. No, I want to be married. Dud. Happens all the time. Why does that happen? Rick, what do you want? What do you want, Rick? Answer, crickets. He doesn't know. He's not in touch with it. And so he's actually letting everybody else push him around in life. And he's never made a choice because he doesn't want to say no to one thing, yes to another. When you say yes to some things, it means you'll say no to others. It's really hard. Unless it's all based in this, love. That's why I told you the intention is the hidden driver. When you're looking at choices that are hard for you to make or choices that are hard for you to swallow, you've got to go back to here and be like, wait, what is it that I want? I want to be awesome. That's an intention. All right, Johnny. And then comes in the counselor in the movie. All right, Johnny, you want to be awesome? Yeah. It's going to be pain. If you're ready to pay that price, then you can be awesome. I'm going to do it. Turns to enter the United States Naval Academy. And then he goes through. He's made his choice. And when he has a hard time, what does he do? He goes back. He just dreams it. He sees it. And he's like, I'm going to do it. It's like, this is how we operate. But guys, if you don't have this wild love and desire, if you're just not like, I want to see Jesus Christ advance in his church, well then it's really easy for you just to drop out when you get a girlfriend and be like, whatever, my priorities have shifted. Just drop out of the school, I'll mess over everybody because I just don't want to be there. Now, someone who changes this late in the game, this is the sign of immaturity. Because it means that you don't even really know what this is. This is a really big deal. When you start to formulate that intention, and it happens at everyone's different age. Think about your brothers and sisters. Think about yourself. When did that happen? I think in my life it happened very, very young. Very young. At 13, I had an intention. I knew I was not going to be normal. And I never had that. Everyone will tell you that. They're like, you've never been normal. You see pictures of me in grade school. I was the only kid wearing a tie. I wore a tie to grade school every day. Because I was like, I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to graduate from college early. And then I'm going to become a priest. That was 7th grade. Yep. I was this weird duck. But it was because my ethical sense was there. Boom. It was just nailed. I had the experience with Christ. That love, desire just never left me. And I'm doing everything I'm doing for SJI and Eagle Eye right now because of that same love. That there was something lit inside of me that will be there hopefully until I die. But it just drives everything that I do forward. I'm a blessed person. It's a gift. But I think it's also something that each one of us, you become like a mature adult the moment you start to have this. Intention makes you mature. Do you want to go to the bars? No. You want to dance risque? Why would I? That's a sign of intention. Instead of like, well, is this what they're dancing? Okay. Tell me what I'm supposed to wear? Okay. No intention. Who are you, man? Made of nothing. So, man, and it's scary because the more you have this intention, the more you're going to start to make choices. Because you're like, you know what? There are many good things, and this is the one. Now, the advantage is you get scared by choices because it means you leave one thing behind. It's this and not that. But my friends, this is what's so beautiful. Your choices end up making you. You make choices that make you. And there's an incomparable good. All I can do is just keep witnessing to it. It is so wonderful to be someone. it's so wonderful to like the person that you are. It's so much better than thinking and dreaming about the day when you dare something great. But to actually be like, I'm daring it. I'm doing something now. I'm a student at SJI that no one else has ever done in the history of time, except the one who's no longer with us. So it's kind of cool to be like, now that statement of like, I am an SJI student and I will be an SJI grad, wow, that's something that you can only get to by saying no to all kinds of things. The value of being something is worth the sacrifice of maybe being many things. The value of being one thing is worth the sacrifice of maybe being many things. But most of your peers stay and they prefer and then maybe being many things. And they're not anything. Are you a Democrat or Republican? Which one, please? Oh, I don't know. I don't really even know. Oh, bad sign. Have you ever walked out of a movie? Ever? No. Bad sign number 2. What do you want to eat? Chicken or steak? I don't know. I mean, like, how long is the list of information going to go? Actually, you got to be like, I want this.
The value of being one thing is worth the risk.
Sacrifice of maybe being many things. Or you can even make it more dramatic, of maybe being everything. The value of being one thing is worth sacrificing maybe being everything. It's really close to being 1%. It's scary. I mean, I hope you see that, like, you know, because when you're one thing, you're not another. Yeah. And maybe doing statistics will reinforce I am an artist. Yeah. My choice is really clear. I'm going to be an artist. Cool. Okay. There's another thing that we have to talk about here, and it's this royal door through which you have to pass. What's it called?
Interim. No.
Imperium.
Which in Latin is translated as?
Command.
Yes. In Latin, fac hoc. Do it. Do this. Hoc. Quiet quote. Hoc. This.
I think that was left from the board meeting.
Okay. The Imperium is an act where you give that command to yourself. No one can do it for you. No one can place it there for you. It's an action. Now, question, is it an action of the will or is it an action of the intelligence?
Can be both.
Both.
Which one comes first? Is it the intelligence that's commanding the will or the will that's leading the intelligence?
Intelligence is in the world.
Nice job. Why do you say that?
Because you have to.
If you went through all of those steps, you were using your intelligence.
Think it before you.
Have you guys ever frozen at the moment of actually doing what you're supposed to do and then not done it?
Yes.
Have you? Put something off. You know you're supposed to do your homework.
Oh, yeah.
You put it off. How do you do it otherwise?
How would I do?
And give you an example. You want to work out. 2 o'clock comes, time to work out, and you're like, I just don't
I
want to.
mean, my intelligence says I should. My will is like, take this ice cream in the freezer.
Exactly.
But in order to do it otherwise, you just have to make up your mind early that you're gonna work out no matter how you feel and no matter what obstacles come your way. You will not sacrifice anything for sacrifice your workout time for anything.
So it's an act of intelligence. This is what I should do. Why doesn't it always work?
Because our will is weak. It doesn't follow through.
Mm-hmm. How can you educate the will to be more compliant?
More
By
intelligent.
just doing it.
Training,
Yeah.
habituation.
It's almost like, it's like a training. Like, I mean, when you're a Navy SEAL, like you tell your will what to do.
Mhm. And you do it.
Yeah, and they do that through like this
How?
strict like regiment of getting, to get
Isn't
to
that
that
amazing?
point. People don't come in as Navy
Nice.
SEAls and wanna make their beds every day.
You're right. So this Imperium is actually something that's trained. And it's trained by means of habituation, making it a habit. And how is habituation trained, formed? Reward and punishment. Isn't that amazing? It goes back to something really, really elemental called educating your children. Remember, you raise cattle and you rear a child. My German teacher made up that joke.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well, that's exactly that idea of reward and punishment actually becomes essential to the educational system. We reward what is good, we punish what is bad, so that you do what is good, so that the moment when the difficulty comes, you just do it. The Navy SEALs will talk about this. They'll say the first time they're in a firefighter, when they're in battle, they say you lose all things in fear, but you go right back to your training. And you just start doing exactly what you trained. And that's why they make them do it the same way, the same thing, over and over and over and over. Because the moment the battle hits and you're in the craziness, that's exactly what you're going to do automatically. Well, I think there's something about that in our life. When there's the right thing for us to do, the intelligence kicks in and says, this hook, this is the right thing. Now, fuck, do it. And you listen to it because you have this training in you that allows that to happen. So one of the reasons why we wanted year 1 to be different than year 2 is because we wanted you for a year to have the training of the will to obey your imperium, or at least better. And the idea next year is that we're going to allow you much more to falter, so that that training becomes less from us and more internal. So there's a shift in the way we're going to live at SJI, and that's all focused there. We want you to get this habituation of getting up at 6, whether you're tired or not, and doing the dishes after every meal, whether you feel like it or not, and being nice to people whether you want to or not, and doing your homework whether you want to or not. And right now we're there, we're rewarding, we're punishing. In order that, like training wheels, now all of a sudden you take the training wheels away, you don't even need them because you're on the right balance. Okay, that's pretty good. We'll walk through that. In the next class, we'll take a look at the last